Welcome back to another FPL transfer tips video for Double Gameweek 25. I'll be covering 10 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip. Let me know if you disagree or agree with the classifications down in the comment section below. And let me know if you want to talk about any other players in the comment section. The plan is also to do a team selection video ahead of Double Gameweek 25 where the triple captain might yet be played. And I'll also talk about some of my plans for blank Gameweek 26 in that video. The deadline stream will likely take place on Friday, a day earlier than the actual deadline. I will be traveling next weekend and coming back from my holidays, and then things will be back to usual, you could say. And for UCL Fantasy, the plan is to do a deadline stream on Tuesday. I'm expecting a very busy turnout, so it'd be great to have you on board as well. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. First up is Virgil van Dijk. I think he is a buy, but only for this week specifically, because in the long term, he's very likely to blank in Game Week 29 where he faces Everton away, with Liverpool having a very favourable fixture in the FA Cup against Southampton at home. If they win that, then Game Week 29 will be a blank fixture. And just before that, you've got a blank in 26. You've got Nottingham Forest away, which is quite decent on paper, but then Man City at home. So really with Van Dijk, if you are looking to buy him, it's for one game week only with that double against Brentford away and Luton Town at home. He's priced at 6.4 million. His ownership is just under 16%. 1 goal, 2 assists, 4 big chances and 25 shots for the season and 82 FPL points overall. For me, Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best Liverpool defender, but with his injury situation and being a major doubt for Game Week 25, I just think Van Dijk is the safest way to cover that Liverpool defence. You could also go for Robertson at 6.4 million, but I just think Van Dijk will start both games, whilst with Robertson, there is the odd chance that he is benched for one of those games at least. So for me, Van Dijk is a buy, and amongst any defender who has a double in Game Week 25, I would argue that Van Dijk is the very best. Another defender I'd highly recommend is Alfie Doughty. He produced 1 point against Sheffield United at home, but he created 9 chances, which is a record for this season in terms of chances created in a single game, and that's 47 for the season in terms of key passes or chances created, no matter what you want to call it. He's got 1 goal this season and 7 assists. His ownership is also quite low, so he's a nice differential, priced at 4.6 million, but the main appeal is 2 double game weeks in the next 4 game weeks, facing Man United and Liverpool away this week. Of course, United at home could be a decent opportunity for a clean sheet or maybe for an attacking return there for Doughty, but the double in Game Week 28 looks far more encouraging with Crystal Palace away and Bournemouth away. If you're asking me, I think the very best time to buy Doughty is in double Game Week 28, but I don't mind buying him at all in this game week, especially if Trent Alexander-Arnold is ruled out and you're looking to find a way to get more funds to maybe buy Erling Haaland up front or Kevin De Bruyne in the midfield. And as a result, Doughty could be a very nice purchase, a differential with also a low price that's very accessible to most of you. He's got 73 FPL points for the season and decent underlying numbers across the board. His expected assists is 3.23 and 6 big chances created for a Luton Town defender, priced at 4.6 million with very low ownership and 2 double game weeks coming right up. So for me, Alfie Doughty is a buy, but I do admit that double against Man United and Liverpool doesn't look great in terms of clean sheet chances. The final buy of this video is Douglas Luiz, and the main appeal of this transfer is the fixtures in blank Game Week 26 and 29. Aston Villa are one of the few teams that will feature across both blank game weeks, and the fixtures are quite good across those two, with Nottingham Forest at home in Game Week 26 and West Ham away in blank Game Week 29. That is a confirmed fixture after Aston Villa crashed out of the FA Cup after a 3-1 defeat against Chelsea at Villa Park. So that also means Arsenal versus Chelsea is very unlikely to take place in blank Game Week 29. If Chelsea beat Leeds United in the FA Cup, then that fixture will be a blank between Chelsea and Arsenal at the Emirates. But if you are looking for a Cole Palmer replacement at a similar price, who also features in all the upcoming game weeks, then I think Douglas Luiz is one of your best options. He's on penalties, he's a bonus points machine. He scored against Manchester United in that 2-1 defeat in Game Week 24, but he's got 7 goals and 4 assists for the season, 22 bonus points. I think that's the biggest appeal of Douglas Luiz, 113 FPL points overall, and he's also a differential at 8.7% ownership. And a bit like Doughty, who also has 2 doubles in the next 4 game weeks, Doughty could also feature in blank Game Week 29. Of course, that isn't confirmed like it would be with Douglas Luiz, but it's quite likely on paper, depending on the Nottingham Forest versus Manchester United result in the FA Cup. If Nottingham Forest lose, which is the more likely scenario, then Doughty will have that fixture in blank Gameweek 29. So a lot of these purchases recommended in this video are also with long-term planning in mind. Of course, Van Dijk is the more short-term punt, but I just think Luiz is a safe, secure option who's got a lot of bonus points potential, and he's very cheap in the heart of the midfield. We're now onto the hold section, and Trent Alexander-Arnold once again falls under this category. I think it's worth keeping him up until we get some more information before the deadline, and if he's ruled out or he's very unlikely to start in the first game, then I would make a case for selling him, maybe to Van Dijk or Doughty or any other defender like Gabriel Saliba for a long-term plan, and that could be the way to also introduce some expensive midfielders or forwards into your team. But Jurgen Klopp said about Trent the other day that Trent has the same area in the knee in terms of the injury. Nothing really bad, but he felt it again, and we have to see. We will assess it. We were made aware of it in the game, so we had to be careful and take him off. So he was subbed off at halftime against Burnley, but he did pick up an assist just before that and gave 4 points. And at halftime, he was still on course for 2 bonus points, which goes to show how many he can accrue over the course of the season. He already has 18 for this campaign, 5 assists, 2 goals. His ownership has gone up, and same with the price since the last time I talked about him in recent Transtips videos, and he's got over 100 FPL points, only behind Trippier amongst defenders. He does blank in 26, Forest away looks decent in 27, but after that it's Man City and a probable blank in Gameweek 29. So it's really this double that I would like to hold Trent for. If you don't have Trent, I don't think it's worth buying him right now with his injury situation. If he is clear to play against Brentford, that is perfect. I think he could even be a buy for this gaming specifically, but until then, I think Trent is a bit awkward. He's kind of hold if you have him, and if you don't have him, you completely avoid until probably later in the season, maybe Gameweek 30 onwards. But with Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's got good underlying numbers, 30 shots for the campaign, an expected assist figure of 4.51, 13 big chances created, and 53 key passes. So Trent, for me, is one of the best defenders in the game, but because of his injury situation and the blanks coming up, I don't think you should buy him at this point. Since his return from injury, De Bruyne hasn't blanked in FPL. He got an assist against Everton off the bench to secure that 2-0 win for Manchester City, and he also came off the bench against Newcastle and blew everyone away with that goal, assist, man of the match performance, and he helped win Man City that match. And since then, he's been a very popular FPL option, and he's now at 31% ownership. His price just continues to go up to 10.8 million, 1 goal, 4 assists, 4 big chances created, 29 FPL points. Pretty good numbers considering the limited minutes for the season. And the other underlying numbers aren't particularly great. 10 key passes in a matter of 2 starts and a couple of sub-appearances, really. You also look back to Burnley in the first game of the season. But overall, the stats won't be that great because he hasn't played that many minutes, but they're still good enough. And with De Bruyne's quality, he doesn't need many chances to score. And with the quality of players around him as well at Manchester City, he doesn't need to create that many chances to get those assists on board too. His combination with Haaland is one of the very best in the league and also amongst all of Europe. And De Bruyne for me is worth holding on to if you have him. I think he'll start at least 1 game in Gameweek 25, but let's wait and see what happens in the Champions League. De Bruyne is very likely to start that game, and if he does, and we'll talk about this in the deadline stream tomorrow for UCL Fantasy, that will have repercussions, I think, for FPL, because then I don't see him starting both games in 25, but he may yet still start in blank Gameweek 26 against Bournemouth away. After that, you could look to start selling him, especially around Gameweek 28 against Liverpool away, a very likely blank in Gameweek 29. I don't think that fixture against Brighton away will take place. It's probably the least likely fixture to really commence and also go ahead in Gameweek 29. So for me, Kevin De Bruyne is worth holding on to if you have him. I don't mind buying him as a single Gameweek punt, but just don't expect De Bruyne to start both games in Double Gameweek 25. With everyone fit and available for Manchester City, they're going to be so difficult to predict, especially in the defensive line. Kyle Walker is still worth holding on to if he's benched in the Champions League. Once again, going back to that Tuesday deadline stream in UCL Fantasy, that's going to be very important when we talk about that Man City lineup, not just for UCL Fantasy, but also in FPL. If Kyle Walker's benched there, then you would maybe argue that he can start both games in Double Gameweek 25. And I personally think he'll start 2 of the next 3 Premier League games, which is quite useful potentially for blank Gameweek 26. But I think with any Man City defender you have, you probably hold on to them. Maybe with an Akanji, for example, who hasn't played many minutes recently, you might sell him. And a lot of people will be gravitating towards Ake after his 11-point haul in Gameweek 24. But I'm still not convinced, and it could be Nathan Ake who is next on the chopping block in terms of dropping to the bench whilst Kyle Walker gets the starts and you just sold him. I think that could be a possibility. He's not a particularly great FPL asset, only 2 assists for the season, 20 key passes, 68 FPL points. Ake now has more after that haul in Game Week 24, and Walker's ownership is 17.3%. He's also not the cheapest option at 5.5 million, and I think Man City will keep 2 clean sheets out of the next 4 games, but after that it's Liverpool away, and like I said, a probable blank in Game Week 29. So Man City defenders aren't particularly great long-term investments. You really are buying them for this double game week and potentially blank Game Week 26, but after that I'd be quite happy to avoid all Man City defenders for the rest of the season. If there's ever a time to sell Cole Palmer, it would be right now with Manchester City away, a blank in Game Week 26. The next 2 fixtures after that will be quite decent against Brentford away and Newcastle at home, but then it's a very likely blank against Arsenal in Game Week 29. So if Chelsea beat Leeds United in the FA Cup, as I mentioned earlier, then Chelsea versus Arsenal won't go ahead in blank Game Week 29. So that'd be 2 blank game weeks in the next 5 for Cole Palmer. Manchester City as well on top of that at the Etihad, and then 2 decent fixtures. But is that enough to really justify keeping Palmer? I mean, look, if you decide to do that, that's fine, because Palmer is very cheap and he's also a good option for Game Week 27 and 28. And from Game Week 30 and beyond, for those of you without a wildcard maybe, I think Cole Palmer is still a long-term hold. But for the next 5 game weeks in particular, I think Palmer is worth selling. You can go to Douglas Luiz, maybe Hwang Hee-chan, who's got a great fixture in blank Game Week 26 against Sheffield United at home. And there are plenty of alternatives elsewhere like Anthony Gordon and Pascal Gross. But I have to say Palmer has been by far the best midfielder at this price and below. He's still priced at 5.9 million. His ownership is almost 39%, 10 goals and 5 assists for the season. His XGI is 12.06. It's absolutely ridiculous. He started this season at 5 million and he's got 112 FPL points overall. He's on penalties and he's also fixture proof. So Cole Palmer is a sell for me based on the next 5 fixtures and the very likely scenario of Chelsea versus Arsenal blanking in Game Week 29. But if you decide to keep him, I'm not completely against that, to be honest, but I would bench him against Manchester City away in 25. And then, of course, he's useless in 26 because he blanks and Chelsea will feature in the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool. But I do like Palmer, and let's see what he does against Crystal Palace tonight in Game Week 24. But from double Game Week 25 onwards, Palmer would be a sell, and we can start to buy him back around Game Week 30 and beyond. João Pedro is also a sell due to his injury situation and the plethora of forwards we have at our disposal right now in FPL, with Ivan Toney doubling in 25, featuring in blank Game Week 26 and 29. You've got Dominic Solanke with great long-term fixtures until Game Week 32 and a double in Game Week 28. Watkins has good long-term fixtures and features in both blank game weeks, not to mention Erling Haaland with a double in 25, even Alvarez, and Darwin Núñez is a great one-week punt in double game week 25. So for me, João Pedro is worth selling, and even with these single game week options like Højlund, who might not be as consistent as an Ollie Watkins, Højlund is in very good form and I definitely consider him right now. So João Pedro is a sell. He's got 8 goals and 2 assists for the season. His ownership is less than 10%. His price is 5.4 million and his XG is 8.65, 83 FPL points. The next 4 fixtures look fantastic, but by the time João Pedro comes back, he would have missed that Sheffield United game in all likelihood, and maybe he's back for blank game week 26, which could be quite useful. But I just think there are plenty of alternatives who will score more points and are worth the extra millions in price. And at a similar kind of price threshold, you could consider Adebayo as well, Carlton Morris, for these Luton Town players who double in 25 and 28. So for me, João Pedro is worth selling, and unfortunately, if you want to go for a Brighton attacker, I think Pascal Gross is by far the best option. He's on penalties, he's a bonus points machine, and to be fair, João Pedro is the main penalty taker. He's never missed one throughout his career. But in terms of his injury, De Zerbi said on the 9th of February, just before the Tottenham game in Game Week 24, he has a problem. We don't know how many weeks, but we don't want to take a risk, and sure, he can't play tomorrow. So he could potentially miss double Game Week 25 and blank Game Week 26 and maybe return for Game Week 27 or 28. But then the fixtures turn for Brighton and they're very likely to blank in Game Week 29, where they would have played Man City anyway. So João Pedro is a very easy sell. Just go to all the other options at your disposal in the forward line that I mentioned earlier. But João Pedro, unfortunately, is just worth selling. We're now on to the final section, the skips, and Heung-min Son is definitely worth buying from Game Week 27 onwards. But remember, he's going to blank in Game Week 26, and if you want to buy a midfielder right now, I'd rather go to Diogo Jota, De Bruyne, Foden, who all double in Game Week 25. And Son, for me, it's just a matter of timing. Wolves at home is a decent fixture and he could do well, but you're kind of banking a lot on him to do well in that single game week fixture, and then he blanks in 26, and then of course you can start to enjoy his points. And the good thing about Spurs assets is that they feature in blank game week 29 against Fulham away, and Heung-min Son would be one of the best captaincy options in that blank game week. His ownership is just under 16%. He's priced at 9.6 million, 12 goals and 6 assists for the campaign, 11.69 XGI and 140 FPL points. He came off the bench against Brighton and got that assist for the winning goal scored by Brennan Johnson. So Son for me is the best Spurs asset, period, even over Richarlison, Pedro Porro, Udogie, etc. But I would buy him in Game Week 27 and not right now. If you disagree, be sure to let me know. And you don't want to ignore the points right in front of you potentially, because Heung-min Son can deliver against Wolves, but I just don't think the fixture is good enough for me to really justify buying him right now. It's a matter of patience. I'd rather go for other midfielders in double game week 25. So Heung-min Son is a buy in game week 27, and right now I think he's a skip. Nathan Ake has started the last 8 Premier League games and he's produced 3 returns in that time frame, and throughout the entire season he's got 2 goals and 3 assists, which is very impressive for a defender. He's got 17 shots, 70 FPL points, low ownership at 6.8%. His price is 5 million, so he's more accessible than Kyle Walker, Ruben Dias, etc. And he's got decent underlying numbers considering the limited minutes over the course of the season. His XG is 1.69, 2 big chances, 3 big chances created, which reflects upon the goals and assists he has registered, 7 key passes, 16 shots inside the box. Only 3 shots on target though, and you could argue that it's not sustainable. Then again, the chances were of a high quality, so maybe you could argue it the other way. With Nathan Ake, he's probably the best Man City defender to buy if you were to go in that direction, but I do think those buying him in right now, it's a bit reactionary on their part. But if he doesn't start in the Champions League against Copenhagen, then maybe he's going to start both games in double game week 25 and potentially in blank game week 26 as well. I'm just a bit apprehensive about any Man City asset really, except Erling Haaland in terms of minutes. And will they start both games in double game week 25 and also in blank game week 26, especially with the defenders. But Nathan Ake might be the best option with 8 Premier League starts in a row. And who even knows with Pep Guardiola? He's so difficult to predict when he has everyone at his disposal. And Man City might not have the most stacked squad they've ever had, but they still have a lot of versatile players and a core of 15 to 18 players of high quality who can get the job done. So for me, Nathan Ake is probably worth skipping, but this might turn into a buy if he's benched in the Champions League. So that's it. 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip ahead of double game week 25. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. You can see the most transferred out players on screen, and towards the beginning of this video I showcased the most transferred in players, and they do give you some interesting suggestions on the trends that are happening every single game week. But we've covered all that we need to. You might be asking, what about Jota, Phil Foden? I've covered them in previous videos, so I wanted to cover some different players and talk about some unique options like Douglas Luiz, for example. I haven't discussed in a trans tips video all season, and the same goes for Alfie Doughty, despite his real consistency since Game Week 15. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new RMS to get this video to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and be sure to check all the links in the description below for the Patreon and Championship, so you can see all my teams, even when, for example, in UCL Fantasy, I'm trying to prevent copying. And not only that, you can also get early access to my videos, and there is a whole list of perks on top of that. You can also join the Discord server, the FPL League, and be sure to do that for UCL Fantasy as well. And also check out Draft Town. There's a link in the description below. I wish you all the best of luck for double game week 25 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.